Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was in China yesterday, and he made this announcement in the wee hours of our morning. Take a look.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
I find it funny that he led with "we don't support Taiwan independence." Maybe save that for the end, or maybe just leave it out. One China policy usually is sufficient to convey the message, but he wanted to make sure that his hosts there in China knew we don't want any independence for those people. Last thing we want. What a mess. Joining us right now, president of Project Sentinel and also a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel in the intelligence arena. He is Tony Shaffer. Tony, why do we have to kowtow like this and say, last thing we want is for the independent, free people of Taiwan to be independent and free?
Peace for our time, Chamberlain said in 1938, and I've been spending the entire morning reviewing everything since this came out. This is 1938, Chamberlain, and if I were the people of Taiwan, I'd be studying what happened to the country of Czechoslovakia that next year. I'm just telling you, I do a lot of time. History does not necessarily repeat itself, but it takes examples from the past and puts them into the present. This was a terrible meeting, and I know it's terrible because CNN is trying to put a really good face on it, so it's got to be bad. Apparently, every issue brought up was dismissed by the Chinese.
It was previewed last week by our friend Gordon Chang, who pointed out, and you're not seeing this from CNN either, is that the person who met our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, wasn't even his counterpart. It was some low-level, mid-level bureaucrat.
Right.
I mean, the insults just continued throughout the entire visit.
Well, they held off to the very last minute, even keeping it a mystery if he was going to meet with Xi himself, the premier, and he finally did. But from everything I've seen, and again, it's going to take me a day to kind of sort through everything, it was very like, you will listen to what we're telling you. And this whole idea of repairing the relationship, Larry, there's no repairing it. The Chinese are getting everything they want. Blinken is a dupe. I mean, listen very carefully to the language they used. I've listened to one NPR interview this morning. And again, I like listening to the left kind of, basically kind of make excuses on how, oh, it's okay that they are not coming halfway to meet us on Taiwan. Oh, it's okay that they're not listening to what we consider our interests. It's all good. We're trying to repair things. No, it's all giving platitudes and placating the Chinese. And this is not bode well for, as I intoned, it looks a lot like Czechoslovakia in 1938.
Yeah, you mentioned Neville Chamberlain waving that piece of paper, "Peace in our time." Well, look at this headline.
Yeah.
Blinken says China promised not to send arms to Russia. Well, that should be. They promised, Tony. They promised.
Yeah. Look, the Chinese have no interest in keeping any word to the United States, especially since we are seen as weak. They're going to lie, cheat, steal. Again, you refer to our friend Gordon Chang. Gordon, according to Gordon's information, which I've seen from my sources, the Chinese are already providing material support to the Russians, perhaps not in sending them big old crates of 105 millimeter howitzer rounds, but they're already doing other things. It is not in the Chinese interest, Larry, to see Russia lose. As a matter of fact, they want Russia to win. That's why they're taking such a hands-off approach. And at this point, other nations do too. Pakistan, India are all dealing with Russia because we are seen as weak. And the more things like this happen with Blinken deferring to China, just reinforces the perception of those former allies that we are a power in decline and we are not to be taken seriously.
You worked in military intelligence, specifically the Defense Intelligence Agency.
A day or two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Trained by the CIA. One of your former colleagues, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, was a guest of ours last week, and I talked to him about this with regard to China and Ukraine, for that matter, Russia, various adversaries, all having information about either the president or, by extension, the president's son. There's no doubt that this presidency is compromised because of his son, because of the contents on that laptop. Even if there's no evidence of direct dealing, which I believe there is evidence of that, just China knowing everything there is to know about his son puts him in a compromised position, doesn't it? I mean, wouldn't you love to have that kind of information on one of our adversaries?
One of our three-letter agencies, Larry, asked me for a pristine copy of the Hunter Biden hard drive for the very issue you just asked for. And they knew that their leadership may have been an agency relating to Mike Flynn, or maybe not. But I'm just saying people had the same concerns you and I have about patterns, about compromise. And yet every element of the federal government eventually turned it away, didn't want to see it. So I do believe that there's ample evidence that Hunter Biden was the bagman for Joe. And they took money from the Chinese. That's why you see Blinken bending over. Look, Blinken was the guy managing the Chinese donations to the Penn Biden Center that came through the University of Pennsylvania.
Right.
So then you see Hunter getting money from Burisma. So to me, there's ample evidence that the president is compromised from multiple directions. And again, I think the Chinese know that, and that's why they're acting out the way they are.
You think about the three major policy objectives outside of our borders by the Biden administration. It's been trying to acquiesce or make nice with China. It's been first allowing Russia to sell oil and gas to Europe in the Nord Stream pipeline, which the Trump administration opposed. That opened the door for their aggression to Ukraine, and now we're dumping money into Ukraine hand over fist. All three of those countries have direct financial dealings, it appears, with the Biden family. I mean, forget about smoke. That's a raging inferno.
Right. And all things being equal, if this was a Republican administration, they would have been articles of impeachment day one when those documents showing the direct link between President Biden, Hunter Biden, and those foreign countries paying him off. It would have been long done. Instead, we're going through this slow, like painful reveal, kind of left-wing cope, trying to explain away everything. The man is compromised, Larry.
Yeah.
The president is compromised mentally because of age and decrepitness, and he's compromised morally because he's taken the bribes and he's acting in ways that would not naturally be done under a president who has United States interests and our policies as his primary focus.
We have a presidential election coming up in a year, and we had two major reports last week of government systems and major corporation systems being compromised via cyber attacks. Do we have any confidence that the systems that run the basic institutions and infrastructure of our country are being protected and stay safe as we enter an election year, a very important election year?
Well, they're being protected, but badly. And I think this is one of those things that I think you and I could recognize just from the layman's perspective. I have some inside information about kind of some of that. And it looked to me from my sources, Larry, that this was a reconnaissance, military term, reconnaissance in force. This was basically trying to go out and ascertain by a foreign power. I have my theories of who it was, but I don't want to get into it at this minute until I have more evidence. This was basically an attempt by a foreign power to examine how hard it would be to push through those firewalls, Larry, on call. This is trying to assess what would be most vulnerable. And again, this is linked to Cuba. Cuba, as you saw, the Lourdes listening post, the signals intelligence post, has been reactivated. These are serious things going on that would happen by a nation that's about to conduct aggressive actions against a superpower.
Yeah, and
I would not be holding back.
That Cuba outfit, by the way, first denied by Admiral Kirby, speaking on behalf of the NSC, and then 2 days later said, well, yeah, it's there, and of course we lied to you. You bet your ass we lied at you. That's the Biden administration. Thank you, Tony. More to come on O'Connor tonight.